The whole incestuous circle just continues with everybody making money off of it. I think there's 100 schools that have $1 billion plus endowments. So 100 schools that have a minimum of $1 billion in endowments. Now, here's the scam that they do because they have so much money. After the 2008 crash, a bunch of schools went out and they raised their rates and they cried about not having enough students, and so they raised their tuition rates. This is the thing they cry about all the time. It wasn't just 2008, 9, 10. The article just talked about it. But they raised their rates. Some of these colleges, I think it was Washington, the state of Washington, State School, Washington, not Washington State, raised it 5.9% because they didn't have enough money, right? They were running a deficit, they said. But in their case, they were taking something like 27% of all revenue and setting it aside for a rainy day. So they had $690 million sitting in a bank account. Not going anywhere, not doing anything because they take a quarter of their revenue and they set it aside for a rainy day and don't count it. So they come back and they go, hey, we don't have enough money. All of the schools do this. In the article, they're naming 3-4 different schools that do this, that have multi-hundreds of millions of dollars sitting in slush fund accounts for them to use when they want to. That is part of their revenue that they then deduct based on some arbitrary number and reason that they need to have or withhold this money to have for a rainy day, which when the rainy day comes, like 2008, 9, 10, they don't use it for any of that, and then continue to cry poor and raise their rates on you and I because they know they can do that because they've got an unending stream of people, as we talked about, to fill every one of those roles. So they know that the government's going to underwrite all of that money, that there's no credit scores, there's no investigation done on any of the students, and the money is just given away. So they just continue to do it. And they continue to add people. They continue to pay themselves more. They continue to add to their slush fund, if you will. They continue to build on that endowment. On the flip side, the banks continue to get rich. The banks don't want you paying back your student debt. Let me say that again. The banks don't want student debt paid back. Why? Because that student debt is broken up into tranches, they're called, and it's sold. So you take student debt, you have $100 billion in student debt, you take it out to the markets and you sell it to institutional investors. And a lot of that student debt, I think it averages something like 9.5%. Right? It's not cheap. There's 14, 15% student debt, and there's 3 and 4 and 5% student debt. So a lot of investors will buy that debt, and the people who sell that debt get paid to manage that debt or how much they have under management. Number of dollars under management. So the bigger that number, the more money then that they can manage, the more money they can distribute, but it's an asset to them, meaning it has some sort of value, like your car has value, like your house has value. And so the bigger the value of your house is, the more you can take a loan out against it, correct? If you're doing an 80% loan and your house is worth $100,000, you can get, and you own your house outright, you can get $80,000 in cash against the value of your house. Everybody understands how that works. It's $1 million, you can get $800,000 against the value of the house. Everybody understands how that works. Well, if you have $100 billion in assets that are, even though they're student loans, and they may even be non-performing student loans, they're still in an asset class, and you can borrow against that asset class at 2 and 3 percentage points because the government loans this money to the banks. Essentially, I think it's a quarter of a point right now. So it loans them the money for free, and then these guys turn around and invest in the same thing the government's already underwritten, the thing that we're responsible for, and the whole incestuous circle just continues with everybody making money off of it. The schools cry poor. We know what the schools have done. There's no crying poor. So the schools can't cry poor. The financiers can't cry poor. The only people who can really cry poor are the ones who make a bad decision, the students.